validating relationship, shoulder to shoulder.
In Hartford, Howard Stern begins to discover the outrageous persona buried inside him, the voice that will one day make him a household name. It is 1979, and America is in the midst of a nationwide gas shortage. Howard uses the crisis to connect with his audience. Shell Oil is his favorite target.
We came up with a promotion called To Hell with Shell.
Howard asks his listeners to protest the shortage by driving with their lights on during the day. Howard's campaign takes off, and the ratings of WCCC start to soar.
Calls from television stations and newspaper meters. Gee, do you realize on the way to work today, like 8 out of 10 cars on the way into Hartford at 8 o'clock in the morning had their lights on?
You could see Howard's confidence level just building and building.
But the creative team at WCCC is about to come apart. Stung by Stern's high ratings, a rival station sends Howard's tape to Dwight Douglas, a radio headhunter.
Very, very funny. I couldn't stop listening to the tape. And usually when you listen to an audition tape, you might listen to the first minute or 2 minutes or whatever and say, okay, he's good for Tulsa or whatever. But I thought, this guy's going to make it. This is big time.
Douglas offers Howard a major market job at WWWW in Detroit at the mouth-watering salary of $30,000 a year.
Good morning. This is Howard Stern from W4 Radio.
When Howard and wife Allison arrive in 1980, the Motor City is in the midst of an economic crisis. Stern jumps gleefully into the fray. He calls the Kremlin and asks the Russians to send foreign aid to Detroit. He even goes on television to beg for ratings.
Please! I need this gig! I need the money! Check me out for 10 minutes.
Detroit was going very, very well for him, but it was a highly competitive market.
Howard's reputation is growing, but it can't save WWWW from declining ratings. On January 18, 1981, the station switches overnight to a country music format to boost its audience. Howard quits.
That was a pivotal point in my life, actually. I was really down because in Detroit, my radio show did not exactly take hold. And I always felt that it could have been big in Detroit if I had just sort of, been more honest on the air, more open on the air.
Stern vows that if he gets another chance, next time he will hold nothing back. And he's about to get that chance. Dwight Douglas immediately finds Howard a job as the morning man at DC 101, a big market station in Washington, D.C. All that's missing is a sidekick to read the news and riff with him. Stern hears the audition tape of an unknown newsreader named Robin Quivers.
I listened to the tape for, a minute, and I said, she sounds great. And I called Robin on the phone, and
Quivers is a former nurse and Air Force captain just breaking into radio. Their on-air chemistry is magic. They goof on everyone. When Prince Charles weds Diana, Howard and Robin do a now-famous parody that punches right through the pomp and pretension.
It's hard to hear you, Robin. You say something about a lesbian? What was that?
Thespian.
Yeah, there are a lot of lesbians over here in England.
Stern finally has the straight man he's been searching for since his early formative days in Hartford. And with Robin, Howard takes off. Nothing is off limits, even the most intimate details about his wife. When Allison's first pregnancy ends in a miscarriage, Stern goes on the air and makes light of their personal pain.
It was devastating to her. And the next day, her husband went on the radio and said, awful, awful, awful. I mean, my wife had to go and have a miscarriage.
I went on the air and talked about her miscarriage, and it made her feel real bad. And that's not a pleasant thing, to come home and have your wife mad at you.
He had already gone to bed, and I stewed the whole night. And when he woke up in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I said, how dare you? And he looked at me like...
You said a little more than how dare you.
Well, I was very upset.
Yeah.
Stern apologizes on air the next day. But Allison is resigned to the fact that, like it or not, their home life, like everything else, is fair game. Nothing is out of bounds for Howard. Washington audiences are realizing the same thing, and they begin tuning in droves. Ratings quadruple, and DC 101 quickly doubles Howard's salary. The boy whose father never thought he would amount to anything is now earning $82,000 a year. But his lewd skits and controversial song parodies are provoking outrage in the community.
Until they found out that she gave them all a social disease, there must be 50 ways to rank your mama.
I'm an adult, and I don't consider it humor at all, adult or child. I think it should be completely off the airways.
If somebody doesn't want to listen to my radio program, they should turn the dial and listen to some other jerk.
But Stern is having more serious problems right at his own station. Stern's contract is up for renewal, but despite his amazing ratings, the station management refuses to increase Howard's salary. He begins sending out feelers to other stations, and in 1982, he gets the nibble he has been waiting for. From his earliest days in radio, Stern had always wanted to move back to the Big Apple. Now, he is about to get his chance. Coming up, Howard is ready for New York, but is New York ready for Howard? For Howard Stern, who grew up listening to radio beamed from the towers of Manhattan, there is really only one holy city of broadcasting. And in 1982, Stern moved from Washington, D.C. to the Promised Land, New York, to work at one of radio's flagship stations, WNBC. NBC's morning man is Don Imus, New York radio's biggest star. And in what is to become a pattern, Stern sets his sights on outdoing him. It's a one-sided rivalry at first. Imus, who is rumored to be troubled by alcohol and drug abuse, pays no attention.
When I came to NBC Radio, Imus was doing this on the radio. He'd be like, WNBC, baby. Hey, how's your Donkey Kong? And then he'd play 12 records an hour. He had given up. He wasn't doing anything interesting, remotely interesting. I revived him.
28-year-old Howard walks in on a cloud of dreams, a $200,000 a year contract in his pocket, a luxury high-rise apartment, and the assurances of WNBC that he will have free reign. All that is about to change. On April 2nd, 1982, NBC Radio's newest DJ is the subject of a profile on NBC television.
What you're about to hear is going to shock and disgust you because it's vulgar, even obscene.
It's a searing critique of Stern's brand of shock radio, and the NBC TV report sends Howard's bosses running for cover.
It's X-rated radio, barnyard radio, and there's more and more of it on the air because kids love it.
They said, ooh, big ratings, let's hire him. None of them had bothered to check how I'd gotten those ratings. So when I got there, literally, the place exploded.
Management decides that the situation can be salvaged if they can control Howard. That job falls to program director Kevin Metheny, soon to become famous to Stern's fans as Pig Vomit.
To this bureaucrat, the most important thing in radio was saying WNBC.
WNBC.
You had to be WNBC. Howard, got to say WNBC. Very important, very important.
Yeah, within days or weeks, there was a fairly palpable tension between the two of us, and then it went south instantly.
Metheny hopes to minimize the time Stern spends talking by demanding that he play a certain number of records per hour. Lawyers are kept on standby next to a dump button. If Howard goes over the line, they'll cut him off. Despite the restraints, Stern begins to win listeners. His double entendres become legendary, like this one, slipped past the censors during a winter blizzard.
How many inches are you hoping for, Robin?
Well, I've been promised 12.
12 inches, huh?
Yeah.
And you think you're going to be able
I
to...
could handle even more. I don't know. I mean, it's the weekend.
Within months, he was in People magazine, he was in the Washington Post. I mean, people were heralding him and recognized right away that almost overnight there were imitators springing up all over the country.
Stern is outrageous. He makes fun of celebrities and talks about women as sexual objects. And his biggest fans are radio's hottest demographic, males 18 to 34.
And it was beginning in the politically correct time period where you weren't supposed to say certain things. And Howard just came out and said, oh, stop it. This is the truth. And I still love him for that.
Everything is starting to fall into place for Howard. His first daughter, Emily, is born in 1982. He has a new house on the secluded North Shore of Long Island. And WNBC seems to finally realize that Stern, like Imus, is good for business. The two bad boys of NBC appear together, despite a growing rivalry, in this commercial.
Because of certain indiscreet remarks by Don Imus and Howard Stern, WNBC Radio apologizes to the following: the National Organization for Women, the New York chapter of Hadassah, Governor Cuomo.
By the spring of 1985, Howard has the highest-rated afternoon show in radio and a new contract worth $400,000 a year with a limo thrown in.
My wife.
But his success is built on a precipice. Stern keeps pushing the boundaries of good taste, and NBC keeps pushing back. The message isn't lost on him.
They sit you down in a chair and they say, listen, you cost us 50% of those advertising dollars. We've lost thousands of dollars today on this show.
you're shaking your boots. The consequences are heavy. You don't want to lose your job.
But NBC top brass are increasingly feeling embarrassed by their afternoon man's antics. And over a period of months, the pressure builds to get rid of what's called the Howard problem. On September 27, 1985, the man with the highest afternoon ratings in NBC history is summarily fired. The guttermouth of talk radio no longer has a microphone. Coming up, Howard's revenge.
Now I'm number one!
Howard. When Howard Stern arrives at WNBC in 1982, there are only 30 talk radio shows nationwide. Well, by the time